Hi, and welcome back to my channel for a short series related to the Tanares RPG Kickstarter. If you recall, in August of 2021, I published a video that introduced this Kickstarter. And this series is the result of that particular Kickstarter and the first of multiple shipments that I should be receiving with respect to the various items that were achieved over the course of that Kickstarter's goals and stretch goals. In February of this year, 2023, for those of you who are coming to this video later, I received all of the materials that were sent in the first shipment, out of a total of 2 that contain a number of items related to this Kickstarter. This is going to cover items that were introduced in their first 2 Kickstarters that were added as options that you could pick up during this Kickstarter, as well as some of the items that are associated with the RPG Kickstarter itself. This, however, isn't all of the items that are going to be sent out as part of this Kickstarter. There are a number of items that are still going through some final polish and publishing before they will be sent out to those who contributed to the Kickstarter. That second shipment should occur later this year or early next year, and it's going to contain those outstanding items. Within this series, you're going to see their initial board game, including many of, if not all of, the miniatures of all sizes that were introduced during those Kickstarters, the first 2 that is, and several supplementary items that were included within the RPG-specific Kickstarter. However, due to the quantity of items that I have received, I'm going to need to break this series out into a number of individual videos that cover related unboxing situations, just simply because there is a lot to go over as I'm unboxing this. I also want to make sure that you're up to date with the information associated with a specific set of boxes, just simply because some might relate to one another, and I want to make sure that you're aware of that. And once I've received the other delivery, specifically the one for the RPG-specific items, I'll record those as separate unboxing videos as well, just to close off the series and to show what the complete set of RPG items, in addition to the original 2 Kickstarter items, were, so you can have a good idea as to what you should receive. Before I get into those videos, however, there are a few things I want to mention with respect to the Tanares RPG system. The company that created the Tanares RPG system is called Dragori Games, and they've now had several successful Kickstarters that first introduced Tanares itself and then added new content to that platform. Initially, the Tanares system was simply a board game called Arena the Contest, but Dragori Games designed it in such a way that it was possible to extend the game with additional content and even create an RPG out of it. It is not 100% clear as to whether that forethought was always there. However, they are definitely taking advantage of that success, if you will, and bringing forward a number of elements to round off the world itself. Once the Arena the Contest Kickstarter had completed and everything had been shipped out, they came up with the concept of the Tanares Adventures expansion, which was their second Kickstarter, and this included more quests, additional game mechanics and systems, and added a lot new features that extended the overall gameplay. The second Kickstarter also introduced the Dragon Collection as an add-on and the Madness Box as a stretch goal, in addition to more villains, quests, and miniatures as part of those stretch goals. And finally, with the introduction of the Tanares RPG Kickstarter, they expanded on the world even further, and have created a 5th edition compatible rule set that takes place within the world of Tanares. This expansion is going to include things like the core rulebook, a player's guide, and introduces an official campaign called Adventures in the Realms of Madness, as well as other materials. And these are most of the aspects that have yet to be published. The one thing you'll want to keep in mind is that each Kickstarter built on the materials already published, thus ensuring compatibility between the board game all the way through to the RPG itself. However, there's one thing I'm not entirely certain on, and that is if the packaging itself has been altered from the first 2 Kickstarters for those particular products that have already been published. I suspect that they have, because all of the research that I've done towards the original Kickstarters is really showing that the Tanares Adventures box has doubled in size from what it was when it was originally published, but that could just be altered graphics. It could be the way that they've displayed it on the Kickstarter. If anyone has that underlying knowledge, please let me know in the comments below, because I'm kind of curious on that. This means that if you're using the past Kickstarters for reference to determine if you've gotten the complete collection, you might have to take a look at additional groupings of boxes or different locations within the various boxes that you've received to ensure that you're finding the right items. However, if you were someone who had already contributed to the earlier Kickstarters and you didn't get everything during those particular campaigns, then the RPG Kickstarter was definitely an opportunity for you to do so, as it looks like, based on the research that I've done thus far, everything was provided as an option. Another thing that I want to mention is about the miniatures themselves, and they are meant to be compatible with official Dungeons & Dragons miniatures, and you will find that these miniatures are very representative of creatures within Dungeons & Dragons. Specifically, these relate to the 5th edition version of Dungeons & Dragons, but it's not necessarily a restriction to that. This system as a whole just happens to be compatible with 5th edition. However, it does increase their reusability between the two game systems, and is one of the main reasons why I like the concepts behind the Tanares RPG Kickstarter. And finally, before I get into each unboxing video, I want to go over a few points that relate to each of the various videos. With respect to each of the unboxing videos, the only preparation work I did at the time of recording was to simply remove all of the cellophane and take care of most, if not all, of the elements of tape or other forms of packaging that would have prevented you from seeing the contents, as well as would have increased the duration of those videos because you'd be watching me sit there and try to go through and rip through this packaging. Unfortunately, the audio in all of the videos within the series is either not that great or was recorded with too much interference. Even though I have a new setup for recording unboxing videos, it unfortunately needs some additional work around the audio side of things, something I'm still learning how to deal with. So as a result, all of the videos have been re-recorded from an audio perspective. However, I have taken that opportunity to inject a few new things as I have learned them since those videos have been recorded. However, at the time that those videos were recorded, the rest of the box was untouched, so everything will be as it was meant to be at the time of shipping. Another thing that I want to point out is that I'm going to be recording these in the order that they were released through the Kickstarter with a handful of exceptions. I will be starting off with the Arena the Contest board game. I will then move on to the Tanares Adventures board game expansion, and then I will go through and cover the individual stretch goals and exclusive items that were covered and thus released slightly differently as part of the RPG set. That order is important because even though the initial Kickstarters had items introduced in very specific stretch goals or unique or exclusive components to a Kickstarter, they weren't such with respect to the RPG until you actually get to the RPG specific items. As a result of that, I try to ensure that I cover each of the various groupings together as much as I possibly can. Now, the one thing I'm going to ask the community to do is try to push this series over 5,000 likes. And if that happens, what I will do is record a series of tutorials on how to play the Tanares system. That's both the Arena of the Contest, the various expansions, and how you actually use each of the individual miniatures and bosses that come with those expansions. If this series receives that 5,000 likes, then what's going to happen is that's going to tell me that you're interested in this system and encourage me to go through and actually run through that series of tutorials. Very much like I've done with Fantasy Grounds and Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition thus far. And if you're enjoying this series and you're finding it useful with respect to clearing up some details about the sets as we move forward, please subscribe to the channel as well as enable reminders for when videos are published. This way, you won't miss any of the new videos when they become available, and you can stay caught up with any of the content that I publish specific to the series and some of the other series that I have on the go. This all helps expose the channel to others who might be interested in similar content, and helps our community grow as a result. With that, let's move on to our first video.